Good morning and welcome to Let Me Talk to My Customer. I'm your host, Chad Counts, along with my co-host, Richard Tyler. How you doing, Rich?
Great. How are you this morning, Chad?
Oh man, it's early
Good
after the
morning, and
time change, and we are rocking and rolling. So um, it's good to be at it, and we're actually having a bit of a cold snap. Not anywhere near Texas level cold, but it's like we had no rain or no winter at all January and February in California. And so getting a little bit of rain, getting a little bit of cool. Had some hail this past week, which was odd. This is the second time this year we've had that. So it's been an unusual year continuing. So well, we want to thank you all for joining us. We're happy to have you with us. Record March continues to march on, and we're fighting hard to maintain those record numbers and shatter the ceiling on some of these sales numbers at these companies. And it's been a lot of fun. So we're excited to be with you guys this week. Hope you are continuing to keep that fire lit. And that's always a challenge, right? To keep that fire lit all month long, keep everybody running and charging for their goals and for their contests, etc. So happy to have you guys with us. We've been doing well on our new salesperson training. We'll have other training opportunities coming to you all in the coming months. If you need to connect with us, we would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, Counts Business Consulting. You can like or follow our Facebook page, Counts Business Consulting, on there as well. You can find us on our website, countsbusinessconsulting.com, as well as LinkedIn, Chad Counts or Rich Tyler. We're on there as well, and happy to hear from you and serve you guys in any way that we can. So thanks again for joining us. This morning, we're going to be talking about burnout and checkout, and how this takes shape, how you spot it, and how you address it in a couple of different facets. I think this presents itself differently depending on if this is a top dog, seasoned salesperson, or if this is somebody that's kind of middle tier, been there a while, or even someone who is at the beginning of their journey and you're starting to see them backtrack or fall off a little bit as well. This came to mind for us during this month and during this year when, seeing tremendous performance. And I would bet most of you all are seeing tremendous performance through this first 2.5 weeks of March. If you're looking across your team, so many of you might see there's a person or persons that are outside of the herd, outside of the flock in terms of how everything else is how everyone else is performing. So in particular, those are the ones that have our attention. Is this burnout? Is this checkout? Are they just struggling to find their footing and not adapting to changing demand? What's happening? So we've talked about some of making progress and continued improvement. And this is another barrier or challenge we have to that in the life cycle of a salesperson. So we're going to be addressing burnout and checking out this morning. So Rich, when you think through this, do you tend to see burnout or checkout more frequently towards the experience end of things, towards the novice experience of things, or doesn't seem to make a difference? It happens everywhere.
Gosh, I think it happens everywhere. At some point, I feel like during the year, there's always a couple of occasions where people of all sales levels are going to encounter some kind of difficulty, which causes them to, check out or burn out, as we say. So, I mean, just thinking, I think most recently with what we've been dealing with, we've been working with with someone who was maybe the number one seller on their team, who kind of over the last couple of months had not horrible sales, but declining in a way that wasn't necessarily reflective of their ability.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time that was happening, somebody on their own team who was not one of the top tier salespeople actually started to outsell this top tier salesperson.
Yeah, there is so kind of a changing of the guard scenario where you have a previous top performer that is either flat or underwhelming, and or they're just stagnant, and somebody else comes along and passes them by.
Mhm.
So I know on the latter side, the person that was number two had it mentally in their sights all year, working with them, that they wanted to track this person down. They wanted to challenge themselves. He's out there. I see he's doing those numbers. I want to catch him and pass him. And so there was a great deal of engagement, buy-in, and motivation on that person's side. So I always want to, and when you have something like that happen, there's both good and bad with it. So I want to celebrate the good of that person and all their progress and what they've done. And on the second side, the top dog, this was one of those where there's a good bit of, I don't want to necessarily say overconfidence, but I would say there was a lack of openness. There was a lack of desire to improve or gain new information or continue to improve tools. And so this person seemed to me a little more isolated, a little more stale, a little more stuck in place. And for them, while that was good enough, I think at that time, I'm not 100% sure whether part of their burnout was, yeah, I've done this enough for a while, kind of just
Resting on their laurels,
yeah,
resting on past achievement.
yeah, or how much once they got past, how much it was, oh, they've kind of lost their own luster, or just whatever it was, their fire wasn't reignited. And when you have good, the difference to me is that person lacked a lot of engagement. They thought what they did in isolation. It was all about them. It wasn't about the team. It wasn't about the company. It wasn't about, the sales environment and the industry or anything like that. And I think you always run into trouble spots there, because that puts a lot of pressure on you. When you have good camaraderie and good engagement, if somebody passes you, there's that competitive spirit of, okay, let's run this back. Let's try this again. Let's see who the top dog is. And you can use each other to make each day meaningful, each day significant. Where'd you end up today, John? Where'd you end up today, Tony? And it just becomes its own challenge, right? So that was lacking. There wasn't any of that. Once this person got past, it was, if anything, it maybe deflating a little bit. So anyway, so that's the spot. That's kind of the background. That's what we're looking at. And so when it comes to that, engagement was always the missing ingredient. So what have you and the owner done to try and re-engage this person?
Well, once we identified that it was happening, which probably took, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 weeks, of looking at trends, seeing what was happening, seeing the opportunities that they had. Once we identified that it was happening, it's really just a matter. I mean, my favorite is just a heart to heart.
Yeah.
I like to turn to them. I like to turn to them and just show them the same type of information that it is that we're looking at, and ask them, for their opinion, what's going on, what's happening. Because just as often as it could be a lack of engagement at work, it could just as easily be something that's happening outside of the office as well.
Sure. Yeah, we've seen that a good bit this year as well, where, it's a parent that's been ill, or just home strife going on, and there's a lot on their plate. It can be a lot of different things.
Sure.
If it's work related, if it's primarily work driven, I think one of your best tools, especially if it's somebody that's already difficult to engage and not necessarily open to criticism, you have to turn them into their own critic, so to speak. So you have a heart to heart. What's going on? How are you doing? Anything going on? Anything we can support you with? Okay. How do you think you're performing when you look at your numbers? and you see so-and-so's at this, are you surprised that your sales haven't been at that level? What's been holding you back from hitting that? And then starting off, we're having a record sales month, everything going on. Your numbers aren't record numbers. What do you think is keep holding you back? Why aren't you seeing record numbers? There have been moments this year and other parts where so-and-so has lost a large account, maybe lost multiple accounts, right? And so there can be other factors in terms of sales dipping or sales struggling. So I think if you see it going on, you don't want to wait, 5 weeks or anything like that. Sometimes it takes that long to get everybody on the same page and get a meeting on the books and different things like that. But, as soon as you notice, you maybe spotted a week once is just a glitch, and then you see it a second week, okay, looks like something's going on. We need to get in here.
Yeah, especially for the higher tier salespeople.
Yeah, you want to feel that, and I mean, you definitely can look at company numbers. It's hard for a company to hit their trajectory or where they want to be if the number 1 or 2 salesperson isn't performing. That's always felt or always seen. So, but anyways, yeah, you've got to have a conversation with them. You got to see what's going on. Is it mental? Is it emotional? Is it fatigue? Is it there's something going on at home, or is it customer oriented? Can be a number of different things. So having an open conversation, not an accusatory or anything like that. And then your tool in your tool bag is get them to be their best critic, right? So is that the best you can do? Is that all you can do? Oh, you can't do any more than that. Oh, well, I'm surprised so-and-so is able to do this. And typically their confidence and their ego and their ability will start to speak up. And that a lot of times is what's missing. A lot of times when they start to burn out or check out, they're cashing in on their ego. And then when you look at the results, it's not being backed up, right? It's not producing at that level. So that's definitely an area to watch for. And that's something that you at home, if you notice your 1s and 2s struggling or falling off, those are conversations you can have. It's, oh, well, a lot of times all you have to do is state your observation. I see your numbers are here. Usually your numbers are here. What do you think of that? Or why do you think you're not seeing those same level of numbers? What's happening for you? And sometimes even just asking that question or having that conversation gets them to pay attention. Maybe they didn't notice yet. And then they're reignited off that. Other times, it is more of a longer conversation about what's going on, but, and you might have to take that mentor leadership role and say, hey, you are every bit as talented and capable to be able to produce this. To me, there's not any reason why you are stuck here at this level. You should be at X, Y, or Z. So sometimes they need somebody else to come along and give them a different vision of themselves, give them a different challenge, a mandate of what's possible, what they're capable of, and not let them just sit where they are. Okay. Number 2, Rich, when it's more of a mid-level or newer persons, what do you typically see or notice in terms of spotting or seeing either burnout or checkout, or maybe the person's going backwards or something like that?
Yeah. So I think with those folks, those are folks who probably, whenever they come across an obstacle early on in the month, it could be a lot more devastating to them than somebody with more experience. And in particular, I'm just thinking about a lot of big credits coming in like the first week that might totally knock somebody off their possibility of reaching their sales goal for that month. That tends to be a lot more interrupting for somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience under their belt or isn't really in the top tier in their team. That could cause checkout almost instantaneously after the first 5 days of the month.
Yeah, and I think that's why
I think that's really a fantastic place for owners and managers to really step in and be that mentor that you were just talking about.
Yeah, and that's why I think we have burnout or checkout on the title for this episode, because I don't know that the person's burnout. I think that would be unfair to say, but definitely they're taken aback, or they're struggling to find their footing. And sometimes that comes after a record month. They thought, okay, I've made it. I've hit this new level, and then boom, they get, you had a record sales month the month before. Guess what? You're going to have a record credit month this month.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. If anything, that means you probably did something right past month, depending on the nature of those credits. But that said, yeah, so that's where you can run the risk of people checking out. They've already hit their goals, they've already hit their quota, they've already hit whatever, and you can run the risk of checking out of they've already started so far behind the ball that they feel like, well, whatever they do this month isn't going to be what they wanted, and so that hope, that motivation, the goal, the target they were after is gone. So most employees will struggle to take themselves out of that mentality. You need to spot that when that happens, and have a conversation. Oh, okay, I get it. That's frustrating. Well, how about this? How about we reset the goals? Let's get these back in range. Let's wipe that off the board. Let's say these last 3 weeks are separate. What can we get done these 3 weeks? That's what we can control. If you're a salesperson that is, you're there daily, sometimes you've got to do this with your employees in the middle of the day. You see, it depends on your company, but I know a lot of companies that will process their credits early in the morning. And to me, I'm always like, oh, if at all possible, I would love you to do your credits later in the day, at least afternoon, towards the end of the day would be best. There are a few things that, undercut performance more than starting out the day $4,000, $5,000 in the hole.
Yeah.
Now, some people, it's like, it snap to it, that gets them on their toes. No, well, forget this. I'm going to get out of this hole. I'm going to get sound. But other people are like, man, I'm working for free today. This stinks. I'm just going to be doing everything. I'm going to be working 8 hours just to get out of this hole.
Yeah. And I think that the difference in that reaction, how the person reacts, is also reflective of kind of their ability or experience,
Yeah. And I think it's true in life. I mean, there's some people that respond, it's kind of fight or flight. They respond and they're ready to battle. Something goes wrong, they're just dropping gloves and ready to go. And other people, it takes the wind out of their sails, and they need someone to kind of put some wind back in or pick them up, push them. I think the other thing we notice, another situation where this is a challenge, is not necessarily a mega step backwards or some sort of event like a credit or starting out in the hole or something like that, but all of a sudden, performance just starts to, you get somebody that's moderate experience or start to come in, and their performance just softens. They just seem like, okay, it looked like they were going forward, they're ready to hit that next step, and all of a sudden they're stuck where they're at, or they're sliding backwards, right? So they're pushing to 90,000, 100,000, something like that. Then the next 2 months, you're just noticing small steps backwards here or there, and seeing certain areas of, usually there's at least 1 or 2 areas of pretty stark underperformance. Oh, so we didn't go back in-stock sales, but our brokered sales are off 25, 30%. We didn't go backwards in stock and brokered, but our warranties are non-existent. And it usually is asymmetric, I guess, is a good way to describe that.
Yeah.
And that, to me, it's frustrating. I think most owners, managers, et cetera, are very frustrated by that, because that seems to be some sort of effort or emphasis lacking there. And I don't know if sometimes it could be they had a bad experience, something went wrong and they get gun shy, human nature, right? They got their hand slapped or anything like that. And they get some sort of their own reason why they are kind of taking the foot off the throttle. Or other times it's, well, that was a problem. I don't want to do that again. I hate making mistakes, so I'm just not going to do that very much. Or I'm going to make sure everything is dotted. And so they slow down everything, right? So it could be letting exceptions become the rule, trying to avoid that 1 in 10 returns or 2 in 10 returns on brokered items or something like that. So, oh, I'm just way more picky. Let me see. I got to talk to my guy. I'm slowing everything down. I'm not locking deals in place. Could be subtle and unintentional. But there's a lot of times where it's like, they take that message to heart and, oh, they don't want to buy warranties. Customer never wants to buy warranties. If I try and broker that, oh, it's going to take too long. They need it today, or it costs too much. Need it today. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting that that's the case, because the 20 or 30% of people that are buying from your other sales team, they don't seem to have that problem. So it must be your phone line, your extension only, where that reason exists. No. Okay. So more often than not, there is something that's happened there, and it could be anything from laziness, could be they had an issue and they've taken that to heart and they're trying to prevent that issue. But something's happened, some mental, emotional, reward-oriented shift has happened with them, and there tends to be a clear distinction in behavior and performance from past levels that they had just reached or just gotten to. So, Rich, when you're seeing that, what are you going after? What kind of conversations or directives are you having with those situations?
Well, first of all, I want them to tell me what that situation was. And I mean, you mentioned, I think, the one that I feel like is most common, and that is having been burned in the past and not wanting to get that burn again, causing them to be gun shy. And whether that's selling warranty or whether that's brokering or whatever the case might be, I want to get them to tell me, okay, this is why I don't want to do this, or this is the obstacle I feel like is preventing advancement here. So getting them to identify it, I feel like, is a big part.
Sure. And just realizing, hey, there's one clear way to not have any problems as a salesperson. And that's to sell nothing. Right? I mean, it's a brilliant strategy. You won't have a job anymore, but yes, you can eliminate all your problems.
Right.
You're selling used parts. You're selling second condition, not as described, not, there are going to be challenges. There are going to be challenges. And the best salespeople don't avoid problems. The best salespeople, they don't necessarily go headlong into them, but they're confident that they can resolve or handle problems as best they can. They know problems are going to happen, so they don't worry about it. That's not what they spend their time trying to avoid. That's not what they spend their time trying to do. They trust that when those problems arise, they'll either already have that in mind. There are alternates available. I know what I could go to, communicate to the customer, hey, during quality control inspection, this part wasn't rated good enough, so we've gone to an alternate part. It's going to take an extra day. It's going to take an extra 2 days. Just wanted you to be aware of that. They don't see that as game changing. That's just a part of their job. That's just a part of selling. And it's a mistake that a lot of intermediate to beginner salespeople make, is that they think they have to be clean or perfect all the way through. And I would highly, highly encourage you. No, that's not the case. You need to rise to the occasion, communicate well, don't dodge those problems, take them head on. They're not big and scary. They're going to happen. They're consistently around the same sorts of things, time frame, quality, all those sorts of things. So you need to build up that muscle, build up that exercise of being able to manage that, communicate that. Your customers don't expect perfection. They do expect good communication. They do expect to know what's happening, why this is happening, why this has changed. Okay. And as long as you do that, you're going to be in good standing. So stop anticipating problems and start going after sales. If you pursue sales, don't let exceptions become the rule. Letting exceptions become the rule will just mire you in mediocrity. You will just be stuck. You will be stale. You won't be able to compete. And you'll be miserable too. I mean, I think you start anticipating negatives. That's just an awful mental makeup and mentality to have. You need to be almost a hopeless optimist as a salesperson. You just need to be relentlessly aggressive and confident and positive that you can take care of this customer. You will provide them the best solution you can. And that's all you focus on, because that's all you can control. And ultimately, while that feels silly, you might run into this problem or the other. I'd rather have a salesperson that's doing 150,000 and running into some problems and managing that than, Mr. 110,000 that never has any problems, but he can't grow beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
He can't grow beyond that. So, all right. Well, that's our episode for this week. Looking at buyout or burnout, looking at checkout. And I think that can come from a number of different things. And I definitely think persons that are going through that right now are more obvious. If you have somebody that is below standard this month, ding, 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 there's something going on. This is really great, historically great selling conditions.
Yeah.
Why isn't this person performing at their best?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you thought they would get there, January, February were just odd, or they were, weather constrained, the different things that were happening. But this was a month where it's put up or shut up time. So if you're seeing, mediocre performance, sluggish performance, or anything, that's something to take on, and not in a combative manner, but hey, let's work at this together. Let's get this solved. We want to get you back up to the level that you are used to, or the level we think you can be at. That's where managers come into place. That's where owners come into place. That's where our value comes to play. If they were capable of doing this all on their own, that position wouldn't be needed, right? That's a major part of what we do. So excuse me. So thank you for joining us again this week. If you are finding yourself dissatisfied with the opportunities that your salespeople are capturing and taking advantage of, please don't hesitate to reach out to Rich and myself. You can comment here on our YouTube channel and subscribe here, or find us on Facebook, Counts Business Consulting, our website, countsbusinessconsulting.com. Or reach out to Rich and I on LinkedIn, Rich Tyler Chad Counts, and we'd be happy to hear from you and happy to help you guys out in any way that we can. So until next week, we wish you all the best, and go shatter some records this month. And we look forward to hearing how your sales are doing. Thanks, everybody.